Work doesn't define me. Black women on refusal and recovery. I want to start off with quoting Stephanie Perry. If you don't know Stephanie Perry, you need to follow her on YouTube. Stephanie Perry, her quote is, "Work is not who you are, it is what you do. It is what you do to make money." For many of us, work is our defining feature. It defines who we are, and we always talk about it. When we meet somebody, it is often what we start off with. So, we're going to have a conversation about ways that many times our work defines our identity and why that might be dangerous for us as Black women, and how we can really reclaim our identity from our work. I want to say a few things before we get started, however, today. So, if you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been licensed for over 20 years. I'm also a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. I'm also the co founder with Marissa Price of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women that is available on replay. If you want to access that, that's available in the description section of YouTube. If you want to get the replay, you can get that in the description section of this video. So, a few announcements, and I already see our channel members, and I also want to welcome a new member. So, hello, Wendy's mom. So, welcome as a new member. So, again, this week we're going to have our first virtual book club with the author. So, I'm so excited. So, look out, new members and existing members. I'll be posting the Zoom link for our virtual book club this Thursday. Okay, so keep a lookout in the community section of YouTube for members only, our butterfly community tab. Okay, so if you want to be a part of our YouTube community, so the butterfly YouTube community for Black women, the information is going across the screen, and it's also in the description section of this video. Okay, so as a reminder, members, new members, information, the Zoom information for the book club, which is this Thursday with the author. The Zoom information will be in the community tab area for members. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you this Thursday. The second announcement is Dr. Roche and I. So if you don't know Dr. Roche is a financial psychologist, also a licensed clinical psychologist. She is the same woman whom I work with to get my financial exit plan together when I was trying to lead a toxic job. So we have done financial master classes together. I think we've done like 4 together. So now we're going to come out with an emergency money plans for Black women that is going to come out October 2nd. This is in light of the 300,000 Black women who've lost their jobs over the past few months. We are really motivated to help Black women during this time. So this masterclass really came out of how do we support Black women in coming up with emergency money plans. So this masterclass is for Black women if you've lost your job, if you kind of see the writing on the wall at your existing job, like, I see layoffs are happening, I'm concerned about layoffs happening, or if you just want to get your money together because these are some crazy times right now. So I will put information on the screen about the Emergency Money Tips Masterclass, which is coming up October 2nd. Okay, so I hope to see you there October 2nd. Okay, so just like anything else that I offer with any masterclass, it will be Zoom webinar. So nobody will know you're there. Okay, I know that we have privacy concerns. Nobody will know you're there. Okay, so your name will not be listed. You will not be on camera. Only Dr. Roche and I will be on camera. Okay, so again, emergency money tips for Black women, October 2nd. The times are listed right there. So it starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. It's replay. If you can get, the replays, you can come live, but also get the replay. And the registration link is right going across the screen. It'll also be in the description section of this video. So that was a mouthful, okay? So I want to share that information with you. I'll keep that information going across the screen so you will have that available to you. And I'll also talk about that towards the end of this video. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Dr. Wendi Williams, and I'm so excited. Let me share with you about Dr. Wendi Williams very briefly, and she's going to introduce herself. But Dr. Wendi Williams is the incoming president of the American Psychological Association. So I'm so excited to have her with us today. So Dr. Wendi Williams, can you please introduce yourself? And then we're going to get right to the conversation.
Well, Thank you. And it's so good to be here. I always hate this question because it's always hard to know what exactly to say. I'm a counseling psychologist by training. I'm the incoming president of the APA, the American Psychological Association. But I would also say that I am a Black woman and I am someone who has been thinking a lot about, and my work is centered, what does it look like for Black women to have dignity and integrity in the workspace and context? Um, and how to create a framework for understanding why we don't feel that way and how that really is not our fault. So I'm really excited, Dr. Kamani, to be in community with you and with your listeners and your viewers, and see through the community that's being built around protecting and supporting Black women through right now what we know is a very difficult time.
Absolutely. And
Hmm.
when we first connected, I was like really
Hmm.
taken aback that you told me that you had been watching me. Because I was
Oh,
like,
yes.
wait a minute, the incoming president of the American Psychological Association has been watching me. I was like, whoa. I was like really impressed. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God. So first of all,
Mhm.
again, congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
election.
Hmm.
And you never know who's watching you. So
That's
I just
correct.
appreciate that you've been watching and you've been supportive. So,
Hmm.
can you talk about when you hear the phrase "work does not define me"?
Hmm.
What comes up for you? What are your thoughts about that when you hear that in relation to Black women?
Yeah, and expressly Black women saying that, right? And I think what
Mhm,
I hear is a statement of refusal. So
mhm,
in 2023, I wrote a book, Black Women at Work on Refusal and Recovery. And I wrote that book in the midst of the pandemic and when the world was appreciating just how much Black women, but other groups of women as well, were actually carrying this economy, and the
mhm,
appreciation of the ways in which that has always been the case since our entree onto the shores of this country, of this landmass.
mhm,
It wasn't a country at the time, right? And
mhm,
so when I hear Black women say that work doesn't define me, I hear a liberatory statement. I hear her saying that I am not what I do, and I'm not defined by external ideas about what I do. And I think that's a little tricky, and we'll talk more about that because for some of us, we're some of the most educated people. So, what we do and that we do it is a large part of our identity. We are responding to being the first in our families or one of many in our families to go to university, to study in fields, to go to graduate school, to become doctors, attorneys, to become public health professionals, to be artists, to be, journalists, to be all sorts of things, to be social workers. We're in the world and living um, in the persona of what it means to do those types of good works, and particularly within the framework of the of being a Black woman, the consciousness, the political awareness, hopefully that folks have that when they're doing that work. And so it is who you are, but it is not all that you are. And I think that for Black women, particularly when we think about the history of enslavement, our labor was all that we were. And so there's this way of reclaiming the right to name yourself. Uh, the right to name yourself as yourself, not stereotyped, not truncated, not shrunken in to fit into someone's limited view of who you are, but that you name it and you are the author. You have the authority to name who
mhm.
you are. And so when I see that language, work doesn't define me, it's a declaration that I'm refusing some other external description or definition of me, and I will be the definer of myself.
Right. And I'm so glad you brought in the historical context because when you think
Hmm.
about for us as Black women that we were brought to this country, and we're talking about Black women in the Americas, United
Hmm.
States, right? But
Hmm.
we think about colonial issues too.
Yeah.
But in the United States, we were brought here for our labor and extracting our
Hmm.
labor and exploitation.
Yes.
So when we think about that, that's why we were brought here. So when we
Hmm.
think about like more modern times, I just think about like Dr. Joy DeGruy. I actually have her
Yeah.
book right here, right? I just think about
Yeah.
post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? And
Hmm.
so when I think about how we have not fully recovered from
That's
slavery because we
correct.
haven't really addressed the wounds of slavery,
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
we talk a little bit more about how the historical issues of
Hmm.
slavery and enslavement, how that still impacts us in the sense that it's very difficult for us to disentangle the
Mm-hmm.
sense of our productivity and
Mm-hmm.
our job title from our identity. Because other people are going to do that, right? Because
Yes, they are.
that's what they're used to seeing us. But what
Mm-hmm.
about us, right? In terms of
Yeah.
internalizing ways that people might project those
Mm-hmm.
images on us. What
Mm-hmm.
about us?
Yeah. It's very tricky. It's very sticky because when you say other people will do that, they are doing that within the context of human resource departments and a society that is built upon most majority of folks working and participating in the labor economy to grow the gross domestic product for this country. So if we get into those economics 101, that's sort of where we enter. But when you think about the birth of this country and its economic foundation, it is premised on the labor dynamics of free Black labor from unfree people on stolen land. And so that's also the underlying framework by which any of these corporations are built. And so it's them seeing you in a particular way, but it's them seeing you in a dialectic with the way in which you were brought here, and
Mhm,
brought here through human trafficking, not brought here through being born and being called into life from a divine source. Those are two
mhm,
different things. And that
mhm,
sometimes is the mistake that we make,
mhm,
aligning calling and why I'm here, the gifts I'm here to bring into the world
mhm,
versus this job that I have.
mhm,
Those are
mhm.
not the same thing,
Right. And
right?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I even think about like how, again, connecting it to enslavement,
Yes.
how as Black women and just Black people, like we were treated
Hmm.
as workhorses. And even
Hmm.
like when I think about for Black women, the position that we're often put in,
Yeah.
in jobs, in
Hmm.
families,
Hmm.
in communities,
Hmm.
um, the strong Black woman,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Strong Black woman cape.
Hmm.
Being
Hmm.
the strong Black woman of everything,
That's
not being
correct.
weak, not having time to rest, not showing weakness, right? And that pressure to always overperform.
Yeah.
Can we talk about
Absolutely.
the psyche of
Absolutely.
that? And
Absolutely.
on one level, right? I always say people, because this used to drive me crazy. So when I was at the toxic job, people would say, "Oh, you're so strong. You're so strong." I was like, "Well, I don't have an option not to
Yeah.
be strong." And I don't
Yeah.
think most Black women have an option not to be strong. Yes, we are strong. But the
Hmm.
other thing is, I think that's a cop out for people to
Yeah.
keep doing things to us, right?
Correct.
And be like,
Correct.
"Oh, well,
Correct.
you can take it. It's no big deal." The
Hmm.
other thing is, I think the challenge is, when can we as Black women say to ourselves, okay, I may be strong in certain areas because I
Hmm.
have to be, but
Hmm.
what are the areas when I can take off the cape, right? Like
Yeah.
it's okay
Hmm.
to take off the cape sometimes.
You don't really even have one that it's not real. So right, you're always human. Yeah, I really love the question in terms of really getting into the internal psyche,
Mhm,
because I think that is, we have to own the ways in which we participate. But I do think that it's very tricky because if
mhm,
you're in a job context or work employment context that is very much seeded, like little seeds are planted in creating it as what it is in the world today. It's predicated on that history, and
mhm,
so it's very hard to fight with something that feels so natural, even
mhm,
when it's so unnatural to like your humanity.
mhm,
um, so that's part of what I will say, and I think then that what that means is that, and I think many Black women can relate to this, that they can even go into an experience having the full intention not of falling for this, of not getting caught in those cycles of overwork and overpressure, of undermining their sense of boundaries and giving too much to the job. They may have had a previous experience that was difficult, or maybe they just have mentors or family members or someone who's warning them, to have, you know, have some boundaries, have the
mhm,
point where you cut off, that kind of thing.
mhm, mhm,
Don't take on everybody's stuff, or
mhm,
you can't be the DEI person there even when they don't have a DEI person there, right? So all the things that we can kind of get sucked into. And it's almost, gosh, I kind of want to like, and I hope this is not an oversimplification,
mhm,
Dr. Kimani, but I think that in some ways it's almost like sending someone who is battling a drug addiction into a situation in which they are going to be seduced, in which they're going to be tempted, because the entire environment around them is creating the conditions that feel so normal and natural to them. So when
Mm-hmm.
we go back and we think about the history and we think about what and how this country has created its sense of even how to have industry, the whole assembly line is based on a plantation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That means Amazon is based on a plantation.
Mm-hmm.
You see what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Like it means that the work in which and how we work and do the work that we do, how we orient ourselves to it, is very much predicated on those very early dysfunctional, very early problematic. Obviously, slavery is toxic and it's not a job, right? It's not an employment situation, but a very toxic set of circumstances. And
Mm-hmm.
that's fundamentally what every element of our workforce is predicated on: the idea of an overseer, a supervisor, the idea of a certain amount of work that you got to get done within a certain amount of time, the idea of setting time limits, because at some point there weren't any time limits. We're really thinking about how the society thinks about its people.
Mm-hmm.
And in a capitalist society, we think about its people as being a part of the means of production. And
Right.
so for Black women, if how we have always seen and known ourselves juxtaposed to how a world has always seen and known us, and we're constantly dealing with those stereotypes and those projections, it's really hard to know where you end and it begins. And so
Yeah.
psychologically, then it really is difficult to unpack and uncouple that. And you may find yourself inside of practices, inside of habits of behavior, responding, even when you have every intention of not getting caught up in those kinds of dynamics. It may be really difficult to avoid it because everything around you is treating you like you're supposed to act in that one way. And you have
Yeah.
to really work against that. And sometimes
Yeah.
the conditions are such that you can't, because even the way your job is defined has those pieces embedded in it.
Yeah. So you're psychologically reinforced in the workplace for certain
Yeah.
things. And I want to add another component, right?
Okay.
So in a personal way,
Hmm. Hmm.
many times we've seen our grandmothers, our
Hmm.
mothers, our
Hmm.
aunts with the strong Black woman, right? So we've
Hmm.
seen
Hmm.
that, our friends, and we'll see things where everybody's busy, everybody's handling
Hmm.
everything, right? And so we have often been brought up that that's just the way we are as Black women. We're
Yeah.
always busy, we're always handling everything. If somebody needs something, we're gonna drop everything and we're gonna make sure it's done and we look
Hmm.
good too, right? So we handle everything and we look good at the same time. And so when there's a pushback about, hey, wait a minute, like I don't want to
I
be
do
all
do
this to
that. Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. Sometimes there's some boundaries, like there's some backlash to
Yes.
when those boundaries are set. Can we
Oh,
talk
goodness.
when there's there's backlash to boundaries, and what
Hmm.
Black women can do when there is that backlash to
Yeah.
boundaries set.
Goodness. Yes. Yes. You never realize how many folks are dependent on your overexertion until you stop. The flip side of that is that when you stop, and if you they will figure out something else to do, usually they'll try to find a way to replace you.
Mhm.
So I think that there are games that we play with ourselves, and I don't mean that in a facetious way. I mean seriously, like you're in an oppressive situation. How do I make the best of it? How do I tie an identity and give it a positive flair to it? This is also something that Black people do. We make things better. We give it a little bit of seasoning, and it becomes something different. And
That's
so we do. And so it's a gift and it's a curse because people don't appreciate how hard you are working, right? They say, "Oh, you make it seem so easy."
mm,
Right? But the other part of it too is that, if you say like, "Oh, well, I'm stronger and I'm faster and I'm smarter," which I am because I've had to be. I
mhm,
am. You
mhm,
are, right? But it also means that your humanity is not seen in there because you're seen as doing superhuman things. You're
mm,
seen as being superhuman, so therefore I don't need to treat you humanely. But if
mhm,
you act humanely, then I don't know that I can have you here because I can only have superhuman versions of what you represent here. That's what I can hire is a superhuman version of you,
mm,
right? And so if you don't have that superhuman performance piece available, I don't know if you have a job here. I don't know if you're employable because I don't know if I can actually handle having human Black people in this workspace, Black
wow,
women who aren't carrying everything, Black
mm,
women who come in and they don't look to the nines. I don't know if
mm,
I can have, and we know this happens for then some of our colleagues, some of our clients, when they show up in their humanity. that is an affront.
Mhm.
And it creates a discomfort for that workspace and workforces too. So I think that we've found some strength and also some impressive, like, wow, I'm pretty strong. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, I am. I am a strong Black woman. And there's a bit of pride that comes along with that. But there's also a bit of, you know, not being able to put the cape down once you started to give it a positive flair, because now it may be the airing of dirty laundry to say, I'm actually tired. I actually can't do all the things that you're saying that I should be able to do, or that I can't do all the things that I've been doing, and I need a break. And there is not a lot of room for that. Likely because the overwork that you're doing has made it possible for other people to have a break, and they're not back from their break yet. And so,
Mm.
what is the company or the organization going to do if you're not overworking or being superhuman in that way?
Hmm. So what do you do in a situation like that? I see a question came in like, so what do you do? Like, so if you recognize that you're in a situation, let's say
Mm-hmm.
personally and or professionally, and people have these superhuman expectations of you, or
Mm-hmm.
you're setting boundaries, or and you're like, wait a minute, like they keep pushing me to do these things, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not realistic for me, or it's not healthy for me, but they keep pushing you. What are some things that
Mm-hmm. I
maybe
really
target
think
you
I
do?
would love to say, let's have, so this is what I would love to say, and then I'm going to say what actually can happen.
Hmm.
I would love to say, let's start to have the conversation. Let's communicate our boundaries. Let's talk about how we're deserving and or needing of space, um, to be effective, and or maybe I need time, maybe I need to be on leave or do whatever the case may be. I would love to say that, because that is what we should be able to say and do, and within certain human resource contexts and with the right supports we can, and with the right managers or folks who can support it, we can. And I also know, this work that you do, Kimani, they're not about healthy jobs, they're about toxic jobs.
Right, right, right.
Right. So I also know that coming with humility and vulnerability can get you punished.
Mm,
I
true.
also know that you say I need help or that I'm not doing so well, and someone may be preparing a PIP or performance improvement plan for you. I also know that too. And
Mm,
so, and I think about that in relation to the 300,000 plus Black women who have lost their positions. And we know that there is this targeted focus
mm,
on, the removal of Black women from certain roles and positions,
mhm,
and other folks as well,
mhm.
that it may not be safe to say that.
Right.
So I'm very worried, actually, to be quite honest. I wrote my book, Refusal and Recovery, in 2023, but that was before this moment. It
Mm,
almost feels like a luxury to say that you can be in a refusal posture. And so part of what I've been thinking a lot of lately is what is the responsible way to be a psychologist, to be a thinker, to be someone who is very much engaged in watching the political space and moment, that is supportive of Black women in a real and tangible way, rather than, girl, just leave. That's not realistic. And also,
right.
so I really love the financial piece that you and your colleague are going to be working on with folks. But we
Mhm.
have to really talk about quiet and loud refusal now. And we have
Yeah.
to we have to go a little. Um, I have a colleague who writes in the space of fugitivity, like taking things underground and really having the
Ooh, I love
spaces
that.
yes, having the spaces that we craft, that are protective and supportive, but are also not very publicly seen, known, or available to other people. We have to
Underground
get
Railroad, yes.
Harriet, right? We have to be strategic. We have to
Mhm.
be strategic,
Yeah,
and we can be. We come from some of the most strategic people, you know.
absolutely.
So I feel like I've been rattling on a bit, but I think that this is the turn that we make. That it's not on Instagram.
Yeah,
It's in the kind of spaces that you're creating here, right? I
yeah.
love the way you talked about earlier around the particular programming was going to be in the Zoom webinar function, for example, because that platform is going to make it possible for there to be anonymity and for
Mhm,
people to be able to be present and be seen, but not be seen, right?
mhm,
They can feel seen by the by the speakers and the topic,
mhm.
but they don't have to be seen if they don't want to or should not be seen,
Yeah,
especially because of the ways in which we are being surveilled and the ways that the technology, um, and the data is being used to track and to harm.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that you named what's happening to us as Black women, that
Hmm.
we are under attack. We're
Yes.
under attack. And the other thing that I appreciate is that you really touch upon something that I really try to emphasize on this channel as well.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
sometimes people don't hear it, but I want to
Mm.
just reiterate that
Yes.
I never tell a Black woman, just girl, leave that job,
Mm-mm.
right? That
Mm-mm.
job toxic, leave it. I never
Mm-mm.
ever say that unless your job, you're about to have a nervous breakdown, you are really sick, and you're about to, no, yeah, leave the job, right? But what I generally say to Black women is if you're in a toxic job or a job you've outgrown and you want to leave, create a plan, right?
That's
An
right.
exit plan about how
Yeah.
you want to go and do not broadcast that to people, right? So start planning in silence. Get resources available. I have resources available. Check out
Hmm.
other resources, but start
Hmm.
planning in silence so you can effectively leave that job.
That's
But
correct.
the fact that we are naming
Yes.
happening, that we are under attack. So there's
Hmm.
things that are happening, and for us to be able to name it and also
Yes.
talk about ways that we can refuse
Yes.
this
Yes.
nonsense, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. So
Okay.
when we, yeah, and yeah, perfect, right?
Yes.
So when we're in those spaces, right? When we're in, and the toxicity can come in all types of shapes and forms. And so
Hmm.
what I really want us to think about is, what does refusal look like in terms of the shoring up of the personal, intrapersonal and spiritual psychological resources that we have available,
Speak on
right?
that, please. Please speak on
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So so I want to, let's first talk about boundaries. We hear this conversation about boundaries, and I've been loving to see the content and the work that folks are doing. Many Black women psychologists especially are doing around boundaries.
it.
There are
Hmm.
so many types of boundaries. What I want to talk about are attention boundaries.
Okay.
Literally, where do you place your time, energy, and attention, and who are you allowing into your noggin?
Mm.
What are you listening to?
Mm.
Is it feeding you? When we say we're being targeted, when we say we are being on the receiving end of unrelenting pressure, you may feel like your job is a little difficult or a little toxic, but the headlines in the news also create the context of even more scarcity and worry. So there's one element of being informed, and then there's the other way of thinking about this, where then am I engaging in this information processing or gathering uh, information about the context? Definitely, I want to be smart about where I am and what I'm doing. But am I also doing so in such a way to create a narrative that is making me seize up or freeze, where I don't have access to the full range of my creativity and innovation by being so stressed? So I think it's
Mhm.
important to think about that. When I talk about attention resources, I'm also talking about who you're letting talk to you. Who are you letting talk to you? So one of the things that has always been quite interesting to me, and that I, have had to contend with in some of my own workspace contexts, is the number of folks who want time on my calendar or want to be in meetings with me, but have nothing of value to say to me.
That's good. Okay.
Okay, and let's talk about being strategic with that. Let's talk about being strategic with that. I believe in the 25-minute meeting. Every meeting's not an hour. Every meeting's not 30 minutes. 25, 45, 50. With any meeting, really thinking about how you're spending your time, and that you need some recovery space or some break in between the next thing you do. Whether that's just to take a moment to say, oh, that was a great meeting, or that was something. Okay. Or to write a little note, or whatever the case may be. But what I'm saying here is to create some time space boundaries for you to catch your breath, to
Mm.
constantly be on calls. And especially for many of us, even when we're in person now, so much of what we're doing is virtually. And so you literally can sit in the same position, and get the sort of neck, arm, shoulder, back pain things that come along with being in that position for so long, because you're going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, and not giving yourself a break from the screen, not giving yourself a break from the constant barrage of storytelling and speaking and information coming
Mhm.
through. And
Mhm.
sometimes that information is not useful to you.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah. So I'll say that. I'll also say that you have folks who are gossiping at work, and that sometimes you may feel like you need to be in the gossip so that you can sort of have your finger on the, pulse of what's going on. Okay, maybe a little bit of that, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
I always find that the folks who are doing the gossiping are wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
If they really were on the, on the inside, if there was something that you would do or could do about it, you wouldn't have to hear it from them, and it wouldn't be coming to you in that form.
True.
Okay.
True.
So if it's not a decision maker, and if you're a decision maker and somebody's trying to, like, what is that about?
And what's that saying, Dr. Wendy?
Hmm.
If they carry a bone, they'll take a bone or something like that.
I don't know it, but I'm sure one of our grandmothers have said it, and it means everything, and it's the truth. I always get the sayings wrong. I'm so bad. Like, I mix metaphors and do all sorts of silly things. But yes,
Yeah.
so I think a lot about that. I've been in many contacts where there's just been unrelenting gossip, and and did you
Mm-hmm.
hear, and I'm like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen my life be enlivened and improved by hearing something in a secret corner somewhere. Have
True.
you?
True. No, never.
No, you
Never.
haven't.
No. Like low vibration. Low
Oh,
vibration.
low
Yes. Yes. Yes.
vibration.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Wait, I want to summarize a few things, right? Okay.
okay. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned one, be mindful of who you're allowing in your space. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
like energy vampires too. So the people that you
Yes.
allow in your space and they just suck all the energy out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are people you talk to and they just dump on you, dump on you, dump on you. So I'm like, check your circle. Check your circle. Who is
Mm-hmm.
around you? Are they
Mm-hmm.
filling you up or do you feel depleted when you're around them?
Yeah, that's
The
right.
other thing is, um, who do you let talk to you? I love that 25-minute meeting. Like, get to the point. Like, what are you trying to say? You know what I'm saying? Is it like really not really worth my time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about when you were talking about there's so much that we're being immersed in. And I've been
Yes.
seeing a lot of therapists actually on social media talking about the heaviness of what's going on in the world right now. And
Yes.
because we are therapists and we're holding space for our clients and they're telling us about the heaviness of the world and their issues, that for therapists, it's become very difficult for us. And
Yes.
so when we hold on to that, that it's very challenging for us. And I think this is what I'm perceiving, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm perceiving that's happening, and I feel like it's a tactic in some ways to get us as a people to be distracted or immobilized, right? I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a tactic to get us so scared and
Mm-hmm.
petrified that we're in this fight, flight, or freeze mode. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what's happening, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's getting us like all of this like terrible news, news, barrage of terrible news day after day
Mm-hmm.
after day. So
Mm-hmm.
when this keep happening, I think we're kind of gravitating to like watching the same kind of negative news over and over and over again. And not
Mm-hmm.
only the stress, so our high level of cortisol is going
Mm-hmm.
raging through our bodies. But now like we're in this constant state of like survival mode, right? So now
Mm-hmm.
our amygdala is constantly activated. We're in
Mm-hmm.
survival mode. So now our prefrontal cortex is offline. So
Yeah.
now we can't really plan, we can't organize, our judgment is off. I
Mm-hmm.
think that this is intentional, right?
Yeah.
To really get us in a state of like, we're not clearly thinking. And
No.
so if we're not clearly thinking, then we can't be strategic and we can't unify. So my hope is that all of us be
Mm-hmm.
aware of these tactics and we say, okay, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to like
Mm-hmm.
unplug. I'm going to stay informed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to limit how much of this craziness I'm paying attention to. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
start doing things to help me be grounded. I'm going to do
Mm-hmm.
things that make me feel well. I'm going to do things to
Mm-hmm.
help me plan. I'm going to do these things because this stuff is trying to
Mm-hmm.
make me just unsettled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think too, and one of the comments from, I won't say names, just in the
Okay.
spirit of the thing, but one of the comments speaking about trust and many Black women feeling alone. And I also think that that's the purpose of these things as well.
Hmm.
When you're alienated, when you feel isolated, when
Hmm.
you feel like you're the only one that these things are happening to, which is
Hmm.
one of the reasons why, Dr. Kamani, I really love your work. And this is why
Oh,
I was drawn to you and your
thank
work,
you.
because this is the kind of space that we need.
Yeah.
These are the sorts of fugitive spaces, right? The types of underground railroad spaces that we need, that are public for using the technologies in the ways that we do, but that also shield and cover those who need access to it without having that be publicized.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about the refusal and the
Mm-hmm.
recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I was thinking about is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when Black women, particularly in
Mm-hmm.
toxic jobs, think about leaving a toxic job,
Mm-hmm.
there will also be people around her who will say something like, "Girl, you better not leave that job. That's a
Mm-hmm.
good job with good
Yeah.
benefits. You better not leave that good job. You're going to end up homeless," right?
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
generally somebody around her who will say something like that. And to me, that represents like a plantation mentality,
Yeah.
right? Like there was always back in the plantation, there was somebody like, girl, don't leave.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the plantation was horrible, right?
Yeah.
Horrible. So can we talk a little bit about that mentality, that plantation
Mm-hmm.
mentality,
Mm.
and what you advise to Black women who may be at a toxic job, and let's say
Mm-hmm.
a toxic job that's really harming her. So
Yeah.
physically, psychologically, the toxic job is really harming her. And she knows that she wants out. But
Yeah.
people are telling her, girl, no, that's a good job. Don't listen to those other people. Cause
Mm.
no, you end up homeless. I'm telling you, girl, you need to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So here's the thing. Not everyone who loves you can guide you,
Mm,
you know? And so not everyone has mentors or folks that they are, are wise or they feel like they can call on. And so
mhm,
this is part of the isolation and the alienation, right? You feel like you're on your own, those kinds of things.
mhm,
I think that yes, wise counsel. Right? I think that so a few things. I think that there is, understand what that statement is about. It's about caring for you, loving you, and wanting you to be able to take care of yourself,
mhm,
knowing that being financially unstable in a society in which we exchange money for getting our needs met, food, shelter, water, the whole thing, that if you are without employment, then you are not going to be able to take care of yourself. And we are watching more and more the loosening and the unraveling of the social safety net within this country.
mhm.
So I take that, even if it feels stressful, because from when you start talking like that, I'll be honest, it felt like a little nerve wracking and a little stressful. Like if I were feeling, um, uh, like I was on the receiving end of a toxic work environment and I decided to share with somebody what I was going through and that I should just quit. And they're like, girl, don't leave that job. Like I would feel invalidated right there,
Yeah,
actually. Right. So
absolutely.
it almost, but I know that that's not where that's coming from.
And it's
I know
invalidating because the person knows that they need to make money,
they
right?
do.
But that they feel invalidated because it's like, I know I need to make money, but I'm dying here. But
Yes.
you don't hear
Yes.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we can, 100%, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that what we can do, and I would say that especially as we are other women in relationship with other women, is to think about what it would feel like to hear what we're saying, to be on the receiving end of that. So
Mm,
one, um, if your sister friend is coming to you and she is, excoriate, she's having the conversation with you around, gosh, it's really stressful, they're doing this and that, and I told you about this and that, and then what do you think? I feel like sometimes I want to quit. You don't necessarily have to say anything, because to your point, Dr. Kamani, she knows she needs a job. She
right.
doesn't need you to
You know,
tell her that.
she needs
Yeah.
money,
Yeah,
right?
she
She knows
knows she
that.
needs
Yes.
that. So
Have
you
bills. Yeah.
saying, girl, don't leave that job is, I don't know if it's helping her.
Yeah.
Uh, right. But what could you say? Right. And on the flip hand side of that, being on the receiving end of that, knowing that this person saying these things, this is likely their best sense of the thing that they can say to you in this moment because of their worry and concern for you. So what I would say first off is that if that's what you're hearing and if it's not helpful, then go back to number one, which was, this may not be the person for you to be talking to about this.
Mhm.
This
Mhm.
may not be the person. Not that
Mhm.
they don't love you, not that you don't care for them, not that you don't respect their opinion, but if it's not helpful, it's not helpful. You're not forced to make someone's unhelpful thing helpful to you. If it's not, it's
Right,
not.
right.
Yeah.
Don't run into the wall
Um,
again. Like, you run
yes.
to the wall, it hurts you. Don't keep running to the wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay. And then what, right? So then I think then it's a matter of really taking the time to trust your gut. And I know that we talked about this isolation and this being on your own and feeling distracted, and the flood the zone tactic that is being used.
Mhm.
But I think that that really is a call to go inside and get a bit quiet.
Mm.
I am a big fan of prayer and meditation. I
Mhm.
believe that a lot of the answers that we're looking for to the questions that we have lie inside of us if we can just quiet it down a bit.
Yeah.
And there's, however you can do that. And a lot of us, we haven't had the quiet in a while. So
Mhm.
part of that is reconnecting with that muscle and seeing
Mhm.
what we can do. If you have a coach, if you have a therapist, if you have another friend who's more sound, absolutely. But I would say first go to you and figure out what your question is and figure out what you
Mhm.
want to even say to somebody else, so
Mhm.
that you are putting out into the world a, a query, an inquiry that speaks to where your heart is. But I do think you have to actually ask your heart,
Mhm.
what can I do with this?
Yeah.
What am I afraid of with this?
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
What's the best that can happen? And ask questions outwardly from a place where you are at least sure of what you're asking. Because you may be saying in a flippant way that I want to leave this job,
Mhm.
but you also actually might be serious too, so how is your friend to differentiate between that? But
Mhm.
you having a sense of, where's this really coming from me? What am I really needing right now?
Mhm.
Going in and being quiet can actually help you to figure out, who can I talk to about this? Who can help me with what I'm looking for right now? Because
Exactly.
some friends are just the friends who take you out for the happy hour. You just go talk about the things, you're done with it. It's over. You're just mad. It'll be better on Monday. And
Mhm.
others are the folks that you kind of can do your ugly cry with. And it's important to know
Right.
the difference.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Know who you talk to, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, like you said, be mindful if you're sharing information with people and they start projecting their fears onto you, don't keep sharing that information with them. It's not going to be helpful for you. This could be friends and or family.
It can
So
be.
because
Yes.
I've experienced it, I've heard about it,
Same.
where particularly family members of a different generation, I have heard that, the projected, you
Mm.
stay at that job till you retire, you get that
Yeah.
pension, and but these jobs are not like that now,
They're not.
right?
They're
So it's
not.
a,
They're
it's a
not.
different level of understanding. So just be
Yeah.
mindful of that. The other thing is,
Mm.
I want to quote Glamazzini, who's on YouTube. I love her quote, and I just want to quote her again.
Okay.
That
Okay.
check the tree before you pick the fruit. So if your friend or your family member is giving you advice, but their life is not,
Ooh.
up to
Uh-oh.
par, right?
Uh-oh.
Or they're miserable,
Yes.
why are you taking advice from them? Okay, so
Right.
just
Right.
check the tree before you pick the fruit.
Check the
Okay.
frame.
Now there was a question that came in, Dr. Wendy. I wanted to ask this question before we move on. So the question was, I don't understand refusal and
I
recovery,
saw that. Yes.
please.
Yes. I can appreciate how hard it is, or how hard it may feel to get our hands around that. So absolutely, I'll give you my definition.
Okay.
Um, so refusal is the act of denying something, anything, to refuse it. And refusal is also the opportunity or the right to the right of refusing. So sometimes we talk about the right of refusal. So it's the right to refuse. I don't always like using the word in the definition, but that is, from a sort of like more contractual or legal standpoint. The idea here is that there are things that will come up and toward you, verbal or nonverbal, contextual, a feeling, an environment, a sense, as the young people say, a vibe. I'm not young anymore, but they call it a vibe. And you know when you know that this does not feel right for me, this is not meant for me. And so what then, and it can be anything. And I think similar to instances of any of our experiences, the thing that I might need to refuse, you might just be perfectly fine with that. That
Mhm.
may, so there's no universal in that space, but I think it's when your gut when you and your person, mind, body person, is feeling this crossing of the boundary with you in a way that you have not condoned and that you feel is disrespectful or lacks integrity or undermines your sense of dignity and peace, then we have a problem. So it is a boundary crossing. And when that is happening in the workplace, we have to ask ourselves what's going on here. Because the reality is that you get it, you apply for a job, you take a job, it has a job description and certain job tasks. Everything else is extra. It's supposed to start at a time and end at a time. And you're supposed to do certain things there. So anything else is not necessarily in it. The attitudes, the gossip at the coffee counter, all that, that's not the job. The job is the job. Exchange of your time doing those things for money to go home and pay for things for yourself. That's what it's for. So when I speak to refusal, I see it as happening in a few ways. So what is refusal? Refusal can be an act. It can be something that you do. You can say to someone, don't talk to me that way, or I don't want to be a part of your gossip circle, or whatever the case may be, or whatever the case. But refusal can also be an inaction. It could be the not. Someone says, well, I told you to call me because you don't report to me, but I want you to call me and tell me when so-and-so tells you such and such. You can literally just not call. That's an inaction. You can not participate in the things. A lot of times we get caught up in workplace behaviors and the toxicity of workplace, right? Because when you get your job description and you sign the contract to say you're going to do this job, they tell you who your boss is, who you directly report to. So if someone else is asking for information outside of that line of reporting, that's not required of you, right? So unless your boss asks you to, right? And so then it's fine. But inaction, meaning that not everything that happens requires that you do something. Sometimes doing nothing is the best doing something that you can do. Not everything requires your reaction.
Okay. And what about recovery?
Recovery is, so what I'll say is that we're recovery is anything that helps you to get back to this balance, or get back to the balance of the boundary where you were peacefully before the boundary was crossed. So what I mean by that is that when someone crosses this boundary for you, whatever the case may be, it puts you in a little disequilibrium, because you're trying to figure out, well, what am I supposed to do with that? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? Do I have to call this person, whatever? And so recovery is anything that you do to bring yourself back into balance. Again, it largely is reflective of responding to that thing. So if someone's saying, call me after you talk with so-and-so and they're not in that direct report, recovery could be like not calling them, right? So the act of refusal places you in the context to recover, because by not engaging in that behavior, then you are recovering and creating that space for yourself. Recovery could look like other things too, though. Could be that in your check-in with your boss, you let them know, like, I just want you to know that so-and-so asked me to call them after this and that, whatever. And I did not do that because that wasn't sort of in our lead up. But if that's something you want me to do, let me know. So then this also gives you the cover in the workplace to say, I'm not being insubordinate because that person is not my supervisor, but I also want to be a team player. I just didn't know if that was the team that you are having me play on right now. And do you know about that, right? And this also brings your employer into the conversation with you. But recovery is anything that rebalances the imbalance of having had the disequilibrium of your boundaries crossed in a way that you have not condoned.
Okay, because I was thinking about recovery in a different way. I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking about recovery in the sense of like healing, right? Because I was like, wow, how do you recover in a toxic environment? Because I always say, like, you can't heal an environment that's harming you, right? So if you're under attack, you can't really heal. But what I'm hearing from you is there's a recovery, like it's almost like micro moments of recovery if there's a boundary infraction.
And I think and I think that we have to be, obviously a good retreat and ritual and good strategy with good coaching and structure, beautiful things that also are very much recovery based. But
Mhm.
that can sound like a luxury for a lot of people right now. And so,
Mhm.
again, when I began to start thinking about this current moment and Black women right now under the attack that we're facing, it's the micro moments that you need. You're not going to be able to go do the big thing. And the big pronouncements are sometimes too large, in fact, for us to find those small spaces of protection and dignity and reestablishing our peace in moments when it's been broken.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too, that given this time when there's such level of fear in the
Yes.
workplace and we're seeing what's
Yes.
happening to Black women, do you think that, issues of rebound and recovery might look different right now for Black women? Or would you give different advice to Black women at this moment in time?
No,
Okay.
because, yeah, I would not. And so the reason being is that the work that I have focused on really is leaning on the leadership legacy of Black women over the arc of our time here. And so even though we're going through a hard time here in this country, and so even though we're going through a hard time now, historically it was harder. And if it got them through, it can get us through this. And that I know for sure. That
Okay.
I do know for sure.
Okay. Okay. So, what would you say to a Black woman? And I'm thinking in particular of like Black women in like leadership positions, because
Mm-hmm.
what I've heard,
Mm-hmm.
and this is very difficult for me to hear, but I hear
Mm-hmm.
this a lot. I hear from Black women in leadership positions who say something like, I'm in this toxic job. I can't stand it. It's harming me. I really want to leave, but I cannot leave because if I leave, then this place would fall apart or my team. I can't let my team down, or my team would be harmed if I leave, right? But I'm about to lose it, or I'm about to, right? So they're in a really bad situation, but they will say something like almost like self-sacrificing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So, what would you say to Black women like that? Because I feel kind of stumped. Like I
Well,
don't know.
this is my wheelhouse. I
Okay,
coach Black women. I coach folks in leadership for liberatory
okay,
leadership. So that is, and I can't tell you how often people say these things. And so part of what I would speak to again, Dr. Kamani, is this idea of the over identification with the job and the role,
mm,
and connecting your calling with a job. And that
mm,
needs to be uncoupled,
mm,
because there are ways in which your calling, which we are all called to do something, all
mm-hmm,
of us. You know,
mm-hmm,
we all have something that we're here for. I mean, I wish mine was to be a singer or an artist in a beautiful way. I'm not that person. I really appreciate it, right? But I am called for what I am called for. And
mm-hmm,
sometimes we can do work and be paid and can exchange money for work that we do in
mm-hmm,
something that we're called for. And so we feel an alignment. But
mm-hmm,
sometimes, and so when that happens, you can feel this gosh, it's such a nice synchronicity. You can feel like you finally are where you're supposed to be. I've seen folks so jazzed about their job in that way, like they're taking on a new role, they're feeling lifted up, and it's beautiful.
mm-hmm,
And hopefully you can hold on to that enchantment. But
mm-hmm,
oftentimes it can evade folks. And so what I would say to when someone is in this space when they're talking like that, typically it's because this job at one point was like a relationship that was really, really great when you met. And it's starting to sour, and you're not letting the truth of it tell you itself about itself. And you're wanting to believe that it's going to be different or that it can be different, but it's actually showing you what it is. People in leadership um, often feel a sense of responsibility for their teams. Typically, they've hired people and brought them on board. So the only reason why this person left this other job that they had and came over is because they get to work with you. And it can
mm,
be so difficult, particularly when you are someone who comes from a minoritized background, a Black woman, a Latinx person, Indigenous person, a person who is queer and is living with disability and is able to represent and show that in terms of like a representation that feels important. Gosh, like this is oftentimes why some will choose to work with a particular organization, because they want to be with you under your leadership.
mm,
And so then when you make choices about you as a leader who is an employee of this said organization, it's still an organization, you're still an
mm-hmm,
employee.
Mm-hmm.
right? Your leadership is not necessarily the work that you do. Your leadership are a set of qualities and characteristics that are you leading, that are
Mm-hmm.
you supporting and carrying folks forward toward a shared goal, vision, or mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so if in that role, in that job, you're not able to do that anymore, then your leadership has been undermined. And so if you are not supported and have the conditions around you in that organization or that institution to do that, there's no amount of being there that's going to protect your team for what is dysfunctional about that place. And you placing yourself in front of it only makes you a filter. Now, when we make coffee, I like a French press, but when we make coffee with a filter, when we make coffee with a filter, what happens to the filter? It
Gets.
gets corroded, it holds all the dirt and all the junk, and everybody else gets that sweet coffee at the end, but the filter becomes jeopardized in that way. And
Mm.
so I need you to ask yourself, are you going to be the carrier of the crap?
Ooh. Carry
And
out the crap.
are you able to actually lead effectively in the what you were hired to do, to carry a group of people toward a shared vision, mission, and vision of an organization when they are giving you crap to filter in order to protect this team that you're protecting?
Wow.
That's not in the job.
That's a good reframe.
That is. I hope so.
That's wow.
Yeah.
Powerful. How do you help them process the guilt that they might have about
I think,
leaving?
yeah, you sit with it, right? Like, because it's real. So who did you bring in, and who, when you think about that, who are you thinking of? So and
Mhm.
so, and they just had a new baby, because it's real.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
and so, and they just bought this house, and da
Mhm.
da da da. Okay, so you process that, and so you don't know what's going to happen when you leave.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, we feel very indispensable
Mhm.
when we decide to leave a situation, but the reality is that people die in their jobs all the time, and that organizations hire somebody to fill that spot because what they call it in human resources is headcount. They didn't say which head. You think your head is special. Not everybody else think your head is special.
Wow.
So, because that's going back to enslavement and the development of the capitalist structure for money making in this country. It is
Mm.
predicated on, we know who you are. We care to a certain degree that you help us get to the bottom line. But, you know, if there are some, don't get me wrong, there are some in some contexts that are so wonderful where folks actually, love and work with one another, and they're set to do so over longer periods of time. But in a society in which we're witnessing this deep distortion and major shift and pivot in our capitalist systems and structures and the monopolization that's happening within certain businesses and organizations, we have to ask ourselves, and how and in what ways are we going to see the humanity of folks in that space? And it's been my experience and my study of the history that has shaped the work that, or the world of work that we have, that when we're set up the way that we are, becoming more and more articulating ourselves now, that human dignity and individuality is not the focus. And if you can't see the human and the humanity in others, you're more likely to treat them like a widget. And so they are
So,
just head count in
so
that
true.
regard. Yeah.
So true.
So
So
I think it's important to, not make anybody feel bad, but to remind them that
true.
you are also at risk and at threat. You say yourself that you think you might get sick. So what if you were to have a heart attack? What if you were to have some way of being that takes you out right now? What would they do?
Mm.
Who's your number two?
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Do you think they're really going to just fire your whole team? Now, some instances it's just that way. Like the company's going to fire your whole team, but they're not going to fire their whole team because you're leaving. They're going to fire your whole team because that branch of what you're doing is not profitable and it doesn't make sense. It always
Mm.
comes back to money. We have personal reactions and relationships with work. Our companies, and when I have been in the C-suite and at those tables, it is a financial decision because we have to go back to the mission and vision of that company and that organization. It's not we may love some of the people we work with, we may be annoyed with others. But it's not personal that way. But it's
Mm.
not personal. So
Mhm.
you taking business decisions and making business decisions in a personal way, and your decision whether or not to stay or leave at a position, even if you're in a leadership role, that's a business decision. So
Mhm.
you making it personal is you adding a variable here that nobody else is counting.
Mm. Another good reframe. That's really good. Okay, okay. So if there's a Black woman watching now,
Okay.
and let's say she's watching this and she's saying, "That's me. I
Yeah.
do define myself in relation to my job. When I meet somebody, one of the first things I say is I talk about my job title. I talk about my job a lot,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
I have a lot of, a lot of my worth is
Hmm.
really wrapped up in my job. What words of wisdom could you offer to her?
You were not born here to do some job. You are not, that is not why you're here. When the breath of life was breathed in you and your little soul came to earth, it wasn't about that job. You are doing your calling in that job, but you could do it in other places too.
So true.
That's what I would say. You
Okay.
know, my niece, when she was very young, she used to say, she's so cute. I'm an artist. And she'd take this scarf and wrap it around her neck, and she would wear these fake glasses. And I think she was kind of mimicking me because you can see I had the little outfit on. But, she knows she's an artist, is the point. She's not thinking of any particular job. If she goes works as a graphic designer somewhere, okay, she's an artist working as a graphic designer somewhere. That's what but you're an artist. And
Right.
so go back to that. And I feel like when I say to this idea of going quiet and going in and getting reflective, because I think sometimes we forget. And I
Mhm.
think, we so want the LinkedIn post where we say, I'm so excited to announce the right? That it also feels like shame when some of the ways in which we're feeling in those workplaces don't map onto the excitement we had when we took the position. But
Mm.
that's not your shame. That's not yours. You
Yeah.
still are exactly who you are.
Yeah.
And that experience has given you, even in when toxic, has shown you some things,
Mhm.
particularly in leadership. It has shown you things that you do not want to replicate. And that's good to know. That's good information. Figure out
Mhm.
how you want to talk about that when you're interviewing and they talk with you about, growth and things you've learned and all of that.
Mhm.
But digest it,
Yeah. Yeah.
metabolize it. Yeah.
And when you're in a toxic work environment, my hope is that you learn some things not only about work environments and what you are looking for about what you don't want to see in the next job,
Hmm.
but that you have learned some things about yourself and that you have grown
Yes,
to a higher level, right? So when I think
absolutely.
about how I am so much better,
Hmm. Yeah.
coming out of that toxic work environment,
You
like
are, yes.
girl, I never would have had a YouTube channel before. I was in the toxic job. I wouldn't have been doing any of that stuff. But the post traumatic growth that I've
Yes.
experienced as a result of that. And so
Mm.
that is my hope is that as
Mhm.
Black women, that we see these situations that we've gone through, we learn some lessons. Not that I want any of us to go through these terrible things, but that we
Mhm.
learn some lessons and that we experience post traumatic growth
Yes.
following what we've gone through. That is my hope. So as we're winding down, again,
Okay.
Dr. Wendy, I want to say to you again, 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 congratulations on your election as the
Thank
president
you.
of the American Psychological Association. Can you just briefly share with us what do you plan to do as the
Mhm.
president of the American Psychological Association, or some of the things that you plan to do?
Yeah, 100%. I want to say thank you so much for this space. It's been so wonderful to talk about these ideas and really share with this beautiful community of women that you've gathered. I really want to thank you for the work that you do. With the APA, I have identified 3 initiatives that I think are really and incredibly important. One actually focuses on work and wellness, because this is the work, right? This is the work. And especially now when we see what's happening in our government and occurring for so many people, I think we really have to have conversations about that. But I will say that even before this moment, we
Yeah.
have been witnessing the turning of a tide in terms of our society and the structures that we have been living with over generations, and whether or not they serve us anymore. And the idea of having courage and creativity to face into a future where we are responsive to the demands of to a 21st century future. So I'm really excited about hosting a set of conversations and ways in which we think about work and wellness, and grounded in the framing that has grounded my work, which is that we think about the original work environments that existed in this country. They weren't jobs, but the they are what the factory system is actually based on here.
Mhm.
So when we think about that and the mass production and thinking of those contexts, that's important. I have been in higher ed for many years until most recently, as a professor, dean, a provost, and my work has centered at the intersection of psychology and education. And so one of the initiatives that we're going to focus on is on youth mental health. So I'm really excited. I'm super
Awesome.
excited about this in terms of, and I'm a person who centers leadership. So even as an early psychologist and professor, my research projects were youth-based leadership development programs in middle schools with Black and Afro-Latino girls in Brooklyn, New York. And so I'm really excited about hosting a set of regional conversations with young people where they inform their adults, their teachers, their parents, their mental health providers within the school context, their principals, what they're going through and what they need for us for them to lead and live well. And so we'll be taking that and transitioning it into a set of projects and programs and research as well, which is something that the APA does really well. And then finally, I'm really interested in people like you, psychologists who have figured, you know what, there is certainly the typical professional trajectory, as you said. You would, who, if you hadn't had the toxic job, would you be doing this, right? But
No.
the fact that you're doing this is important, bridging new media and bringing information to people in ways and places that they had not previously had available. So YouTube is a wonderful tool for that. We have always talked about in our field around giving our psychology away and helping the public be more healthy by having more opportunities from learning from skilled, informed, and committed experts who can hold space in a way that makes sense. And so I have an initiative called 100 Psychologists Rising, where we highlight and amplify this work and also bring folks to our convention who can kind of do brief little TED Talks about what that work is, because I also want to inspire the younger generation of psychologists coming up, students, early career, but also folks who are in this career pivot moment. And I think that we need to talk about that as well. And our wellness and work and wellness space also focuses on the pivot, because many people are leaving, and not just the 300,000 plus Black women, but many
Mhm.
people are looking at the current structure of workplace and employment. And what does it mean to sort of do their work in the world? And many of them are pivoting to their own entrepreneurial endeavors and figuring out other ways of showing that expertise that don't look like the typical ways that they've done that work in the past. And so these are the initiatives that we're working on. I'm sure that other things will pop up because I expect an interesting year given the times. But these are
Absolutely.
the these are the things that are exciting to me and that I think are ways that our psychology can make a contribution to the world right now.
Well, I'm excited for you and for APA. And when you were talking, I was like, whoa. I mean, there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about offline about APA, but
Okay. Okay.
because I do a training actually on Black youth and suicide. So I would love to talk to you
Absolutely.
about that. So
Absolutely. We'll find more time.
okay.
Okay.
Fabulous. Okay. So let's talk about services that you offer, Dr.
Yeah.
Wendy,
Yeah.
and your book and how you can be contacted. Let's talk about that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Well, everything about me can be found at drwendywilliams.com, DrWendiWilliams
Tell
dot
me
com.
again. I'm sorry. Say it
Oh,
again.
DrWendiWilliams.com. So everything's on my website, and on Instagram, I'm at Dr. Wendi Williams. Everything's at Dr. Wendi Williams. There you go. So thank you for that. Um, I have decided to leave academia. I see it as a place that can be difficult for many Black women. At the top of 2024, I watched, as many of us did, um, the announcement of three Black women academicians who were in leadership who died.
Yeah, that was
You know,
heartbreaking.
and it was heartbreaking. And so it really struck to me like, I don't know that this is the space and the place. I know the work and the expertise that I bring, but I also think that there may be other ways for us to um, think about this. And what I know is that I'm a phenomenal leader, but I don't know that it is getting and doing its best justice in this one institution. And I think I need to be talking to other people about leadership that keeps them well and whole. And so I've opened my practice, work with Dr. Wendy, where I am focusing on supporting leaders and organizations to lead healthfully and well in ways that we are not always given, in ways that we're not taught. It's not a formal way in which when one is coming up through the leadership pipeline that they're encouraged to be. But with practices and processes that I know that work. And so that's where I've focused my energy. So really with senior leaders. So that's important to note. I know sometimes folks may want, you're like, I need that help. But I'm like, I have a particular focus on people who are at a particular level in their careers. When you start asking me the question about the leader who doesn't want to leave because everybody's depending on that, that's my client. My client is
Wow.
that person that carries that kind of load and that is thinking about all these things in these particular ways and is trying to navigate whether or not they can change in the systems and the structures and how they can, if they can, and for how long they might do that, and to craft strategy around that. Also, how to work with their teams if there's an opportunity there, to develop folks. So I don't believe that we all should just get up and leave for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, good leaders are can be pushed out because the conditions are difficult, but sometimes we can craft and cultivate conditions that are better. And a good leader can do that, not on her own, right? Not on his own, but with, if you have some good soil, you can grow some good things. And so I do a lot of work with helping individuals and groups and organizations to figure that out.
Perfect. And what's the name of your book again? And how can people get the book?
Okay. Well, I have a couple of books, but the book
Oh,
that we
couple
talked
books.
about, so we
Okay.
can talk about this
I didn't
one.
know that.
No, it's all on the website. So if anyone is interested, they could just take a look. But I think that the book that I think is most relevant for this group is Black Women at Work on Refusal and Recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. And before I read the community chat, I want
Yeah.
to quote my dear friend Colette Elizabeth, who
Okay.
said, when people ask her, what do you do for a living? She
Yeah.
said, I live.
This is it.
I live.
This
Okay.
is it. I
So
love that.
let us remember that, okay? I
Okay.
live, okay? Let's not focus on our job title, okay? So
Mhm.
we'll read the community chat and then we're going to
Okay.
start winding down.
Okay.
So, yes, so our book club again for our butterfly YouTube community for Black women is this
Oh.
Thursday. So check it out. I'll post again the YouTube community chat for our members. The
Mhm.
Zoom information. Hey, Marissa, good to see you. And good to see our community members. So I see you, Cynthia, and I see you, Wendy's mom. Good to see you.
Mhm.
I see you, Maya. Hey, powerful and so very true. I'm experiencing all of this right now. That is
Mhm.
so true that your overworking allows others to take a break. It is
Mhm.
ridiculous how they treat us and what they expect of us and not of others in the workplace. Agreed.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I'm worried for this climate for Black women. Yes, we are
Mhm.
worried. And I appreciate what you said. What was that word you said about going underground? What did you say? It was
Fugitivity, like being a fugitive.
yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
Ladies, please get your finances in order if you don't so already. Yes, that is
Mhm.
exactly why, shameless plug, why Dr. Roche and I, Dr. Roche is a financial psychologist, while we are
Mhm.
doing the Emergency Money Tips Money Masterclass for Black women, October 2nd. This is the time we need to get our money together. If you've
Mhm.
lost your job, you have concerns you're about to lose your job, or you just want to make sure your money is together and you have an
Mhm.
emergency plan, we're having an emergency money tips masterclass, Zoom webinar, excuse me, Zoom webinar, so nobody can see you. Okay.
Mhm.
Registration link is going across the screen, also description section. Many Black women feel like they're going through this alone. Trust is an important issue. We need spaces like this to build community and authenticity, support,
Mhm.
mentor, and build one another up. So true. I
Yeah.
agree. Thank you. You have Dr. Kamani. Yes, yes. We talked about the refusal and recovery, wise counsel. Plantation mentality is real. Yes, it is. I agree with Dr. Kamani's statement about there are tactics to make us feel worried, afraid, etc. Yes. Coming up with a decompression plan. Okay. Get a coach who specializes in growth. Yes, coaching is very powerful. I have invested in coaching. It has
Mhm.
helped me tremendously. So, what can we
Mhm.
talk just really briefly, Dr. Wendy?
Yes.
What's the difference between coaching and
Oh,
thaneracy? Okay, because
that's a
some
good question.
oh, I'm gonna get a life coach. I've had all this trauma in my life, and I'm gonna get a life coach.
Mhm.
I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. There's a difference between therapy and
Mhm.
coaching, right? So I advocate for both, but there's a
Okay.
difference. There's a
There
difference.
is.
So can we talk about the difference between therapy and coaching from two
Absolutely.
psychologists?
from two psychologists. This is a real good conversation, I think, because obviously, folks sometimes don't hold that distinction. A psychologist or a mental health professional, someone who is licensed to
Mhm,
do work with the public. They can be
mhm,
licensed as a mental health counselor, they can be licensed as a social worker, and they can be licensed as a psychologist. But
mhm,
each of these folks bring a certain level of expertise and background to doing psychotherapy with individuals. And what
mhm,
this means is that they have spent a certain amount of time studying coursework, but they also have done some work where they were supervised by
yeah,
an experienced provider, someone in the field, psychologist supervisors of the psychologists, social workers, etc. There are some exceptions in some instances, but for the most part, someone more experienced who has done therapy and worked with clients for years then is supervising this person once they finish their coursework to make sure that you've been working with several clients, they get feedback on the work that they've done with those clients, and they've had that support over a period of time. It's typically several thousand
hours.
hours, I think
Yeah.
300 or 3,000 rather. And then they have to take a test, and so they call it the licensure exam. It's one in each state that one has to do, and so each state um, is the purveyor of who becomes licensed. And so this becomes important because when you're seeing a psychologist or a social worker or mental health counselor who is licensed, they are licensed with the state. They're allowed to work with you in that state, and they may have what we call reciprocity for them to work with other professionals from other states. So states may have an agreement. So that's fine. You can check on their licensure or their license in the state. And if you have any complaints, if they've done anything that you feel has been unethical, you can lodge that ethical complaint with the state as well as with their professional organization. So when we talk about a person who is licensed to do psychotherapy, that's a psychologist, a mental health counselor, a marriage and family therapist as well as a psychologist. They will have a license. You'll see that when they put the letters after their name, it will start with an L. LMHC, LSW, LMSW, right? And so, or license LMFT. And so that means that they're licensed. And psychology, each of them will also have a license number, and you can look that up to see if they've had any issues in terms of ethics boards and things of that as well. And so that's largely the issue, is that there's this accountability. A coach is
Mhm,
different. There still is accountability with a coach, but you're not looking for a coach to help you grapple with certain mental health diagnoses or manage relationships or help you to manage relationships or to address certain types of challenges that at their underpinning have um, at their underpinning are grappling with certain psychological functions and manifestations in your life. You're looking for a coach to help you with situational challenges and opportunities that exist in your life at any given moment. And it's pretty focused on a particular space and area of your world. So when I said, for example, that I do coaching right now and I coach senior leaders, that's very specific. It
mhm.
very much is drawn from my particular experience and the work that I can do specifically there. I don't call myself a life coach because I'm not coaching people on their lives. I don't call myself a fitness coach because I can barely go work with my own trainer. I've been working really hard on it, by the way, right? So people have expertise that they bring to a particular field, and now they're in a position to teach, guide, and support. And that's what a coach does. Sometimes work with a coach feels therapeutic because you can have an awareness, an awakening, but that can also happen, with friends too, or and with your partner. You have a conversation and you express the truth, and that is like, oh my gosh, like that, I didn't even think about that, right? But that, even if it feels therapeutic, like that you had this opening, processing what that means and how to work with it and what it might mean in the constellation of your whole life, and with regard to your diagnosis, how you might process and think about medication, etc. That is work that you would do with your therapist. Sitting with what this means for then the career direction and my strategy, your therapist may not be able to help you with that, but your coach might, right? And so this is how you work those things through. I hope that's clear
Oh, that
ish.
was crystal clear, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
generally a coach is more present focused, helps with a particular issue, and really helps you like next steps about something, right?
Yes,
Like a
yes.
business coach. Like I've worked with business coaches, so they
Mm-hmm.
are very helpful with, okay, so this is the problem I have. Give me the steps about how to
Mm-hmm.
get to that point, okay? And thinking about with a therapist again is licensed. So if there's something that happens, you have recourse.
You
Okay.
do.
With a coach, generally not recourse with if
Mhm.
something happens. Okay.
Mhm.
The other thing is with a coach, like Dr. Wendy said, it can be therapeutic, but
Mhm. It's not
there
therapy.
it's not therapy, right? So
Mhm.
they should not be getting into like your deep personal issues and giving you advice about like deep personal types of things and get into like
Mhm.
your deep personal family dynamics and your childhood history and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you notice it's kind of crossing the line, you need to pay attention to that because
You do.
that's crossing
That's
the
not
line.
their role. Yeah.
Appropriate. Not appropriate. Okay. The other thing I want to say is with
Mhm.
therapy, that you need to make sure that the therapist is licensed to practice in your state. Okay.
Mhm.
Some therapists are able to practice in multiple states because
Mhm.
they're licensed in multiple states, but
Mhm.
some therapists are not. So a
Mhm.
number of you have contacted me to ask if I
Mhm.
can work with you. I'm licensed
Mhm.
in California. If you are not in California, I cannot work with you because I'm
Mhm.
only licensed in California, and California
Yeah.
does not allow you to have reciprocity anywhere else. Okay, so
Right, right,
if
right.
you're
California is very clear that way.
right, if you're contacting me and you're somewhere else, I'm sorry, I'm not able to work with you as a therapist. I'm
And it
sorry.
can kind of be, I just wanted to say really quickly, a little confusing because during the pandemic, there
Hmm.
was this moment where the different states said, you know, we're going through a mental health crisis within the
Hmm.
pandemic. Everyone's at home online anyway. We're
Hmm.
going to allow it. But now those boundaries across states are up again. And so it really, we really do mark that because the state is what gives the license. That's who provides the license for that clinician, and so you really want to make sure that you have the recourse, as Dr. Kamani mentioned.
True, true, true. And I do
Mhm.
have a video in my description section of YouTube about how to find a therapist. Okay.
Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
talks about that. And also, just to remind everyone, I've mentioned this before,
Very
but the
good.
Loveland Foundation, Loveland, Loveland, I'll put that in, just in the comment section. The Loveland Foundation, you can apply to them and see if they have the free therapy vouchers for Black women. Okay.
Mm.
Apply to them and see if they have free therapy vouchers for Black women. Okay. So they don't always have the vouchers available, but you can apply and see if you can get the vouchers. Okay.
Mm.
So you apply and they might say, well, we don't have the vouchers available now, but we might have them available at a later time. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I accept those Loveland Foundation vouchers. Other therapists accept the Loveland Foundation vouchers.
Mhm.
So check it out if you're interested in applying to get those free therapy vouchers for Black women. If you're a Black woman, okay, okay.
Just
So
yeah.
let's see. Okay, I think that in the midst of wanting to leave a job, we sometimes invalidate ourselves. We
Mhm.
can, we can get through this with a plan and strategy, as Dr. Kamani shared earlier. Yes,
Mhm.
planning and strategy is essential. It really is. Okay. I would not have been able to leave that job effectively if I did not have a plan and a strategy. Stillness. Yes. I love coming up with a decompression plan. Dr.
Mhm.
Wendy, who prayer, stillness, ask questions. Thank you. Absolutely. We also have to be our sister's keeper and check in on each other. So true. I
Mhm.
absolutely agree. And you know what? If you know that a Black
Mhm.
woman is going through a difficult time, I want to say this is a Black woman who was in a toxic job, and many people saw what was happening to me.
Mhm.
Many people just left me, right? They saw what was happening to me, and I think that they were so scared that they were going to be the target as well that they just kind of just stepped away. If
Mhm.
you know that a Black woman is struggling in a toxic job, maybe she's the target of something in a toxic job, not that the expectation is that you fight with her or, anything like that, but just checking in with her like, hey, sis, I'm sorry this is happening to you. Hey, sis, how you
Mhm.
just words of support. Okay. So if
Mhm.
you know a
Mhm.
woman is going through something, just reach out to her. Please do that. Okay?
Mhm.
Show some compassion. And so, as Save Our Own Souls, yeah, such a great conversation. Thank you so much. Post traumatic growth sounds like a book. Now, listen, I didn't come up with the term. Okay. I'm not going to fast forward the term. Okay. I learned about post traumatic growth. Okay. But I think it's very powerful. I do. Congratulations
Mhm.
on your presidency for the APA. Yes,
Oh,
yes,
thank
yes.
you.
Love that. Dr. Command, the post-traumatic growth. I need to unpack
Mhm.
this. Yes, post-traumatic. Do some research on it. It's absolutely phenomenal. Post-traumatic growth. Dr.
Mhm.
When they, girl, my community is
Mhm.
beautiful. They said, congratulations again, Dr. Tamar
Oh,
Bryant, former president, and
thank
now Dr.
you.
Wendy.
Yes.
Yes, I am
Yeah.
so proud. When Dr. Tamar Bryant got to be president, I was like, woo, girl. I was so excited. And now Dr. Wendy, I'm so excited. Yes.
Thank
Work and
you.
wellness focused on the pivot. Love that initiative. Yes, yes, yes. Um, yes, the work pivot is where I am now and love that
Mhm.
it's an initiative that is so very exciting. Oh, look at this. Okay, so we need to have Dr. Wendy back. Okay, I'm asking her back. Yes. You said a whole word. Thank you so much for this brilliant conversation. Thank you both so very much. Absolutely
Mhm.
needed help when inspiring. Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Kamani. I
Mhm.
appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Awesome content. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Yes,
Mhm.
both professions are helpful to master because it's complementary. So true.
Mhm.
Big
Mhm.
differences for sure. Prayer answered with the conversation. Thank you
Mhm.
so much, Dr. Kamani and Dr. Wendy. I work in higher ed leadership in Texas and
Mhm.
at a MSI. What's the MSI?
Minority serving institution.
Okay, okay. Can't wait to get your book. Good. Okay.
Mhm.
Ladies, I need a whole team, LPC, coach, dietitian, and so on. Okay, I got you, sis. I got you. Get your team, girl. Get your team. Okay.
We
So,
all
Dr.
need a
Wendy,
team.
as we're winding down, again, ladies, I hope that you are part of the Butterfly YouTube community for
Mm.
Black women, that I will see you this Thursday with the author as we talk about our first book club.
Mm.
I also hope that you will be a part of the Emergency Money Tips Masterclass with
Mm.
me and Dr. Roche, who is a financial psychologist, the same financial psychologist whom I work with to get my financial exit plan together.
Mm. Very
Again, we
good.
really need to get our money together during this time. I cannot stress that enough.
Mm.
Again, this will be Zoom webinar, so no one will see you. No one will know that you are in the
Mm.
class. Registration information is going across the screen, also in description section of this video. So Dr. Wendy,
Yeah.
last words, any last words you want to share with the community?
You were not born for this job. That's not in the that's not in the mapping of your life. You just happen to work there now, and you will or won't later.
I couldn't have said it better. Okay. So, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Again, Dr. Wendy, thank you so much for
Yes,
being my
sir.
guest. Please give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with at least two other Black women. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Turn the notification bell so you know when I go live or when I upload another video. And on Tuesday, I will be live with Dr. Roche to
Mm.
talk about the emergency money masterclass. Okay. So the emergency money tips masterclass will be on Tuesday to talk more about the masterclass. So
Beautiful.
I'll see you on Tuesday, everyone. Take care, everyone. Take care. Bye.